Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Around the World in 80 States. We're back, season 2. I'm super excited to be here. I am super excited because this is an episode I have wanted to do for an entire semester. And I know I say this every time. I have two extremely special guests with me here today because today we're bringing in the new season, the new semester, talking about a place that is very special in not only my heart, y'all's hearts. We're going to talk Chile. So I'll have my two guests introduce themselves, starting with Kara.
Hi, my name is Kara, and I'm a third-year student, double majoring in biology and Spanish, and I'm from the Des Moines area.
And I'm MJ. I'm a senior. I'm double majoring in international studies and Spanish with a human rights certificate and a minor in dance. And I'm from the Twin Cities area, Minnesota.
And we all are together because, well, one, you know me, lucky you. But no, because we all went to Chile. So I want to start kind of with the one that's maybe a little easier to describe and start with you, MJ, talking about why Chile, and you went through the USAC program just like I did. Talk to us about, why Chile, why'd you even study abroad in the first place, and then kind of what all you did with USAC.
Yeah. I've always known that I wanted to study abroad. Like, since I was in middle school, it was something I'd always envisioned for my college career. And as a Spanish major, I wanted to go somewhere where I could take Spanish classes, use it, practice it, and just really have that extra level of integration where you're forced to use it. And just the way that my credits worked out, I had a lot of transfer credits coming into college, and so USAC worked really well because the credits were pretty equal versus I believe CIEE is like the credits count for themselves in that program, and they're like counted as transfer credits. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe with USAC it's like included in the University of Iowa credits, and so that worked for me, who was coming in with a lot of transfer credits from another college. And so when I was narrowing down the options, there was the option Montevideo in Uruguay, and then there was Santiago, Chile, and it was really just between those two options. And
shout outs to our friend Blake, who's out in Montevideo right now.
Shout out Blake. I'm sure he's having a great time. Yeah, I did a bit of research on the two cities and the two programs, and basically I was just drawn to the size of Santiago. It looked like it's a larger population than Montevideo. I like the idea of being in a larger city that you could get around in, and the program itself, when I looked at the Montevideo program, I think it was more business centered, and so the focus of the program in Santiago just more aligned with my studies at Iowa, being Spanish and international studies, political science sort of view. So that's why I ended up in Santiago. It really didn't take me that long once I started looking at the cities.
So, Kara, talk to us about, because you went through CIEE, so we want to hear about that. But just first of all, why study abroad, why Chile, all that? Because, again, it's not a place that people usually think about going.
I agree. I would say for my motivations for studying abroad in general, came from an earlier age. When I was in high school, my family and we hosted my two exchange sisters from Mexico. So because of that, Latin America already had a pretty special place in my heart. Because of that experience, I went into college with a Spanish minor, or deciding to minor in Spanish. So when it came to study abroad, I didn't really necessarily need to study abroad for the minor, and I realized once I got in there with CIEE, I was going to surpass the credits for a minor, so I just decided to double major. But yeah, as I said earlier, I just knew I wanted to stay in Latin America. I didn't really want to go to Spain, just because I feel like when I speak to people about Latin America, there's usually a lot of negative stereotypes surrounding it, and I wanted to be a person who could come back with those experiences to kind of break down those stereotypes. But I ultimately chose CIEE because when I was looking at the time, they had a fellowship, the CIEE Leading Change in Latin America fellowship, and it was basically just going and doing posts on social media, writing some things for online blogs for them, and receiving a fully funded semester, which included my tuition at 2 host universities, my time with the host family, all program costs. And then I really ended up paying for my plane ticket, and then just personal expenses, which for me made huge difference, because when I was meeting with my academic advisor, I was looking at USAC and CIE, and I think those were really the only two in Latin America, and I saw the prices, and it really stressed me out. So I actually also was between CIEE in Santiago and USAC in Montevideo.
Mm-hmm.
Montevideo was kind of my second choice if I didn't get the fellowship through CIE, which thank goodness I did. But Chile in particular, I have a second cousin. She studied abroad in Chile about 15 years ago, Santiago in Valparaiso. And she would just always talk about it. We have a few things at our house from Chile, and that was just always in the back of my mind. So having that experience of her talking about Chile and then thinking about, I've had all these great experiences with people from Latin America, that really just confirmed my decision to go to Chile and stay in Latin America. So, yeah.
I'm glad you guys are both here talking about this, and kind of how you said there's so much negative stereotyping around going and studying abroad in Latin America, almost that like, why would you do it? It could be a waste, or what is there for you to have from that? And to actually have been able to have heard people who have done it before, and 15 years ago is a long time, a lot has changed in 15 years, but also just you guys, myself, just taking that step and really seeing it from ourselves, like, and having such amazing experiences coming back, and while you were there too, but being able to hear those, like, I loved being able to hear what you guys were both doing while you were there and the things that it offered and how it's going to continue opening up opportunities for you guys. And that, like, yeah, more people need to be knowing about Chile. Like, we need to get more people on Chile, need to get more people on, Uruguay and Montevideo. Like, the study abroad world is so much bigger than Europe. Don't mind the fact that most of my guests are from Europe. That's okay. I've studied abroad in Europe too, but like, I'm really glad that that's kind of like the MO here, is just really taking that step and being like, Latin America has something to offer us. I want to ask, or start with living situations too, because that's another big thing when studying abroad. I try to talk about this as much as I can. So when I was in Santiago, I was living in student housing. I wasn't in a host family. You were both in host families. Mm-hmm. So MJ, I'm going to start with you again. Talk about the host family experience, and what were you expecting from that versus, what it actually was, what you took from it. Talk about the host family experience.
Yeah. I had a great experience. I lived with a single mom and her son, who was about a year younger than me. He was also going to university, a different university. And before I went there, we weren't given a lot of information. We weren't given their contact information or anything. So we had never spoken before I just showed up one day and was going to be living in her apartment for
Not
4
to
months.
interrupt, but you guys had that too, because like us who lived at Live-in-X, which is the student housing, we didn't figure that out until like 4 days before we went. Like, we had nothing. And then they're like, here's your housing, accept the contract.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah, I think it was a few weeks before I went. I got a picture of them, a little short bio that they'd written, their names and their interests, but still no email address or phone number or like complete address. And so I was just really trusting with the program, and the bio was really sweet. But yeah, I think everyone who was in my cohort there had good experiences with their host families, or if they decided to live at the student accommodations, the Live-in-X, they also like enjoyed that freedom as well. But my host mom was very flexible, and she was still working. She was a little bit younger than some of the other host moms in the program, and so she was really busy, but she really stressed communication. And so it was basically, as long as I communicated what my needs were or where I was going to be at, she was cool, and she kind of just let me do my own thing. Like, it was very free at her house. But we would share dinners together. Every morning she would have breakfast prepared in a little note before I went to school, and she was usually off at work already by then. And then after our days, we would come home and usually have dinner together, and sometimes her son would join us. When I was there, it was like the summer break months for the Chilean students, and so sometimes he was off doing his own thing. But yeah, it was a very welcoming experience. I never felt like unsafe or unwelcomed or out of place. It was a great way to just decompress at the end of the day and practice your Spanish again, even more at home. It was like, you always had to be on it, so to say. I got to meet some of her extended family as well. It was like the first week I was there. I think I arrived on a Wednesday, and we were this was my first time I had met her. We were in her car driving home to the apartment, and she was like, by the way, I'm having a family barbecue on Friday, and you're gonna meet like my mom and dad, you're gonna meet some of my siblings, you're gonna meet my son's girlfriend, like all these people
Whole
are gonna
crew
be here.
coming down.
Literally,
Be ready.
yeah. And I was like, oh, like it was really exciting.
You're like, my Spanish ain't ready
Yeah,
for this,
I was like,
man.
my Spanish is not ready for that. But so all the feelings, like this is a beautiful timing that I can meet all of these people while they're in town, and experience all the food and all the family time. But yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, and I can't say I killed all the conversations, but it was really beautiful to be included and just so welcomed in that family gathering, which I know like they're not all together all the time. Like it's hard for them to travel and all be in Santiago in one place, and so it did feel very welcoming that was kind of my introduction to like the family and living there. So yeah, it was very special.
I will say I am very grateful to have lived with 2 different host families. It's not usually how CIE does their host family placements, but for my host family, I was living with an older woman in the city center, and I just absolutely adored her. It was pretty much the same like situation as yours. She would make me breakfast. Every morning I would go off to school, and then I would come back, and we would have dinner. We would talk for an hour and a half every night.
Was she the one with cats?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll get to that.
I'm jumping the gun. That's my bad.
Yes. But I would say she was very much like a grandmother figure. Like she would not let me touch the dishes. She would not let me do my laundry. She would like clean my bathroom and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so different from being in college, but I ultimately decided to switch to a different host family just because of my experience hosting exchange students in high school, because that was a very short time period. And they really centered it around family experiences. So I was like, you know what? Like, no shade to her. I absolutely adore her. But I was like, I just felt like I wasn't getting what I wanted out of a host family. So I spoke with the program coordinators at CIEE, and they eventually connected me with a different host family. Not quite in the city center. It made my commutes to my 2 universities around an hour every day. So
Where were you?
I was in La Reina.
Okay.
Yeah. So right on the outskirts of Santiago, but it was really nice coming home every day because it was right by the Andes Mountains.
Yeah.
Like you could stand on the corner, generally right outside of my family's house, and it would just be the mountains. And it was beautiful. I loved it. But with my second host family, it was the 2 host parents, the 2 kids. The daughter was 27, the son was 24, and their partners were around a lot. And then they had 9 cats and 4 dogs.
9?
Yes, 9. And they mainly lived outside, so it felt like a farm. But I also loved it because I love animals. It felt a lot more homey living there because they had crazy schedules. Every day was different. We would eat at 10 p.m. Some days we'd be genuinely at the dinner table from dinner on a weeknight until 1 a.m. One day I was... because I had to come home for my brother's wedding, and it's so crazy. My host brother's girlfriend knew how to do nails, so she was doing my nails at 2 a.m. at the dinner table for my brother's wedding. And, like, just small
And to clarify,
things.
your brother's wedding was back in Des Moines,
It
not
was-
in Chile.
Yeah, it was home in the U.S., so I did have to come home a weekend for that. But I think living with a host family made my experience. I feel like this isn't something a lot of people who study abroad experience, but I had a harder time making friends while I was abroad, not only just with the Chileans who were in my classes, but others in my study abroad program. In my host family, they were very like understanding of that. They didn't try and push me, didn't try and make me feel bad in any sort of way. They really just stepped in. On weekends, I would go to my host sister's boyfriend's soccer games. I'd go to the grandma's house. She like crocheted me a little bathrobe, and I think
You're her daughter now. Like,
no,
that's
genuinely.
commitment.
Yeah, and when my parents came to visit at the very end of my program, we had dinner, and my parents brought so many gifts because anything they had mentioned, like any American candy or good or whatever, I like kept a list of it, and I told my parents, and my parents brought all those things, and then like a few little Iowa trinkets, you know. So we gave them a bunch of those gifts, and they had ended up getting us a bunch of gifts. And we just talked, and they like took us back to our hotel, and it was just like, I just know I'm gonna have that connection for life. And it's something that a lot of people who study abroad don't get. I feel like it's not as common for people to go for a semester and live with a host family and be like, no, like, we're family. Like, obviously not by blood, but we have this close connection. Like, I want to make this connection with you. So yeah, I adored both my first host mom and my second host family. And with my first host mom, when my parents came to visit as well, we had stopped by her apartment, and she like gave us snacks, and we sat and talked for 2 hours, and they're just so friendly. I'm so grateful. So
That's awesome. MJ, where was your host family? Because you were out in Lorena, which is normally where people are. Were you out in Lorena too?
I was in Providencia.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was just across the street from the nearest metro stop. And so
which
Which-
stop?
Which
stop?
one?
Inés de Suarez.
Okay.
Okay.
So I could just, it was like 15 seconds from leaving the door. I was on the train, and I could go anywhere in the city, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Yeah, it was a really great area to live in. I mean, obviously the metro accessibility, but there was also just the most gorgeous park down the street that you could find any activity you wanted to do there. It was very well supported. It was just so full of life. So I spent a lot of time in that park. You could tell that it really helped the community and the neighborhood there. So that was very beautiful to see. And then I also was lucky to be very close to like 3 of my friends in the study abroad cohort. They were like in walking distance. We were all in the same neighborhood. And so it was also just really fun to be in close proximity with my friends who like I saw at school, but we could also go to the park, and the neighborhood it was very conducive to hanging out with people in your community. I really miss that.
I went down to the Inés de Suarez area once, and I remember the park you were talking about, but the thing there, did you ever go to the Carabineros Museum? Because it's right by there. And
No, I didn't make it. But I know what you're talking about.
Riley and I got bored, and we went down there because I believe her family was not like in that like block where your guys were, but was close to that. And they have a Pope mobile in that one as like an example of like some security thing that they did. But they had a Pope mobile. They had like a tank you could go into. They had a whole bunch of weaponry.
What?
So my memories of Inés de Suarez are that Carabineros Museum, which was like super random because the park is right there, and it's so beautiful, and there's those housing complexes, and then there's like this white building thing, and if you look over the fence you can see the tanks in there, and it's just like, oh, okay. Did you ever go on down to the Carabineros Museum?
No, I can't say. I didn't even hear of this the entire time I was there.
Man,
Now I'm kind of bummed.
you missed out on the Pope mobile experience.
Okay.
That rocked.
I'll have to go back.
Definitely. No, but I like what you guys said about, just the host family thing and the real or the long-term real life connections that you guys were getting, that even though there's the language barrier, I think you guys realize pretty quickly that the language barrier really is just like, it makes it more fun, and it goes away anyway because it's just that human connection between them, and they're just really caring for you, and you're having a good time. Every time I talk about people who've done host families for a whole semester, I'm just like, dang, I really should have done that for the whole semester, because when I was in Spain for a summer, I had a host family. I loved them. They were amazing. We had such a great time with that. But when I was going to Chile, I was like, I want freedom to move. I want to be on my own. And like, I didn't dislike it, but again, just like hearing the stories that you guys have and others that I've talked to have, I was just like, if I would go back and do it again, I would do a host family. I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give, and I hope you guys would give, and I'll get to y'all's advice at the end too, because I want you guys to be able to bring that. But host family, definitely need to do the host family.
I would agree. Yeah.
I think
So, no, go MJ, go.
I think everyone in my group had a really great pairing with their host family, and I didn't hear of any of my friends talk about feeling constricted or like they had to follow a certain schedule or routine because of their host family. I think generally they're all on the same page that you're here to study, you're here to explore, you're here to make friends and do your own thing, and like we'll have meals together and you can come home when you need, but I'm not here to like keep a watchful, like a close grip on you, you know.
Yeah, that's how my experience was too. Because I feel like the majority of people who were hosting, they had hosted before,
Mm-hmm.
and then also with my host family having their older children,
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like I think they knew like with them like what about was normal, and then they also understood, you know, they weren't my actual parents, so it was kind of that, you know, separation.
Shout outs Mr. and Mrs. Juhl, can't be replaced.
My mom's gonna listen. She was asking when the podcast was gonna be.
Aw.
Hey, Mrs. Juhl, and hey, Van Ostrand family as well. Shout outs to you guys. Love you guys. I want to move us through just some of the more nitty gritty here before we just delve into crazy stories, experiences, other things. MJ, I'm going to start again with you just because I think it's going to be a little bit easier to describe the classroom experience and kind of what that was in comparison to Kara. Because Kara, I want you to break down your your class and your schooling experience. Yeah, MJ, break down just kind of like the class things and how it was. And before we even get started with that, I have to give all my love to Monica. She's the love of my life. I love you, Monica. And Jorge too. I love you, Jorge. I love you, Polly. I love all the teachers and people there. You missed out, Kara. I'm sorry, but it's okay. It's okay. But anyway, yeah, MJ, tell us about like the schooling.
Yeah, so I went to the University of Andrés Bello, and it was a smaller private university. And when I got there, so for our spring semester, it was right in the middle of, I mentioned this earlier, but it was right in the middle of the Chilean students' like summer break off. So when we started classes, our group of 13 students from the US were the only students in the university at that time. And it's much smaller than the University of Iowa's campus. You know, we had all of our classes in one building, which used to be an old house. So all of the classrooms, you could see the like balcony windows, and you could tell it used to be an old bedroom. It had a lot of character and gorgeous sunlight and high ceilings, and I miss that building. But we would have
Great colors too. It was the
neon green.
The colors were amazing.
Yeah, in that like central area.
Oh yeah.
It was and plus I was there in the summertime, so it was just warm and colorful and bright and all things good. But with the USAC program, you take classes just with the American students in your cohort. So the class sizes, I mean, our group size was only 13 students, and so when you were split up into your different classes, you'd have classes with like 5 people at a time. I think we maybe had one class with like 11 of us in it.
What class would that have been that put like all of you in one?
Native Chilean cultures was very full, and then also the human rights course was also pretty full. I would say those were like the 2 biggest ones, but there were some classes with like 3 students in it, which I actually really, really enjoyed. We had basically everyone was kind of divvied up into Spanish classes based on your level, and you would have a Spanish class every morning, very intensive, but very conducive with learning the language and practicing the language when you're in there with 4 people. It's like everyone's going to take a stab at this exercise, you know? And then I think I was taking 6 courses, so I had a pretty full course load. And I know some people, you know, went there and only wanted to take like 11 semester hours, and so you could really make it what you wanted it to be, and so they would have some days off school and they could just explore the city and whatnot. But I would say I was in that university building from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. 5 days a week. It was I spent a lot of my time at school, but I really enjoyed it. I loved the small class size. I was very, very lucky with the group of people who was in my program. We just got along very well, and so it was very comfortable to be in those small classes. We really got to discuss the material, dive into it. The professors knew us all so well. It was just a great environment to, I don't know, hear other perspectives, discuss it, argue in a way if needed. And I was very interested in the topics we were learning about as well. I took a politics of Latin American course and human rights of Latin America. And I would say those were maybe my favorite courses, where I was just so curious and motivated about the material, which I can't say I always feel in like American college courses. And I loved the content. I felt like I wanted to dive deeper into it, even outside of classwork. And then when we were in class, we really got to get into it. And the professor was so knowledgeable and passionate about it. So I feel like I just came out learning so much from my one semester there. And then it was very interactive in the classroom, but then we also had a lot of classes where we had field trips out into the city, especially for the human rights course. We had like 4 field trips, I want to say, which were very powerful.
Did they take you to Via Grimaldi?
Yeah, we went to Via Grimaldi, which I would say was the most impactful site for me. We went to the Museum of Memory and Human Rights, and we went to Londres 38, and we went to one other site, and the name is escaping me at the moment. But these were for the class of human rights, and these were all sites where detainees of the Pinochet dictatorship were held and tortured and murdered. And so it was we spent a lot of time talking about the Allende presidency and the coup and the Pinochet dictatorship that followed for 20 years in our classes. And so it was all new information to me. I had heard about American involvement in Latin America, dirty wars, United Fruit Company, of course. But honestly, like the details of the U.S. involvement in Chilean politics was very new, and I think it helped shapes the way that I think. Like it was very tangible. It helped
being able to just feel and see it.
Yeah, it helped click a lot of things into place in my mind. And it remains a interest to this day. Like I feel like I could just keep delving into that topic and expanding from Chile to the rest of the Southern Cone and Latin America in general. Yeah, all that to say, I had a wonderful time just in the school portion, like let alone exploring the city and meeting the people in my host family. Like I would go and take those classes again. I would take more classes from those professors. It was just a great way to learn.
100%. And Kara, before we get to you, I have just one interjection that I think is necessary. Well, first, did they take you, Kara, to Via Grimaldi?
No, but I went on my own.
Okay, you did go too. I was like, if you didn't go, we need to have a talk like after this about.
We're getting on a plane.
Yeah, we're getting on a plane. You were talking about, MJ, like how small the classes were. They were really good on like building relationships, just building the camaraderie and things. I was joking about Monica, one of the teachers, the love of my life. I loved having class with her because I had 3 classes with her, and they were all very small. I got to know her super, super well. And I still talk to her to this day. I'm probably going to send her this episode. Actually, I have some messages from her that I need to get back because I'm still asking her questions about things, like you said, being so open to learn. But the funny thing with that is, so I went the semester before MJ. MJ and I knew each other from a Spanish class that we had taken 2 semesters before. And like, I knew MJ, but we weren't like, friends. Like we knew who each other were. But I'm in class, here, like I'm back here. It's the next semester. And I get a text from Monica, and she goes, "Hey, do you know," can I say your government name?
You can say my government name.
Okay. She was like, "Hey, do you know a Megan Van Ostrand?" I was like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Deep cut.
Like, wait, you like this girl from Spanish class 2 semester? Like, yeah, I know her, but why? Is she down there? And she was like, "Yeah, she's down here now." I'm like, "Oh my God, MJ, bro, you didn't tell me." Not that you were under any obligation to. Again, we didn't really know each other at the time, but I was like, that's crazy. That's the only reason I found out any of this was Monica told me, and then
then we reconnected. Yeah.
We reconnected and we went from there, and I'm so happy for it. But it was like those things of just, oh yeah, I am glad I would have spoken with Monica because maybe Jorge would have mentioned that. Jorge is the program advisor, would have mentioned like, hey, there's another Iowa student there, and it would have been like, yeah, whatever, probably not a chance that I would know them. But yeah, just to get that text from her, not from you, not from Jorge, not from anyone else, was like, oh, all right. But yeah, like I said, we still talk and those things. It was just it's so funny.
That is funny. We both just had to go all the way to Santiago first before we could
Before we could
text each other. Yeah.
Yeah, before we could text each other and reconnect.
That was a really fun moment though to like when we FaceTimed and had all these things to say, and I was like sitting in the teacher's lounge or whatever down there, and it was a fun moment to reconnect.
Just being like, hello person I have not seen in like over a year, and teacher who I just left. Like
yeah. And I have one additional thought about classes before I forget, because if you're thinking about going and they're offering the dance class, take the dance class. It was like once a week. There were maybe like 6 or 7 of us in the dance class. Some of us had taken dance before. Some of us, it was like our first dance class, but it was so fun. We just once a week went, we learned some salsa, some bachata, some merengue, I think. One day we did flamenco, and it was just in the loveliest little dance studio in the city, and actually ended up taking some ballet classes like outside of this program just because it was just a wonderful space. But take the dance class. It's super, super fun. At the end, you do a little performance for your peers if they want to come watch, and it's just a great time. So do that.
I did not take the dance class, but I think 80% of my cohort ended up taking the dance class.
And you missed
and
out.
I did miss out. They had such a good time with that, and I got to see their performance, and it was really fun. So, yeah, if you're doing USAC, do the dance class. Anyway, Kara, we've kept you waiting, but it's time. We got to hear about the CIEE side of classes and the academic experience.
There's a lot to talk about. I'll say that. I would say CIEE is similar to USAC as in the way they have a few classes that are through CIEE. So a class where they hire a professor, but then they decide if they're going to have the class based on if like enough people signed up. So they only ended up doing just one class that we could choose from, and it was an advanced Spanish course, and everybody in the program ended up doing it. There was only 8 of us. So I had that. It was hosted in Universidad Diego Portales. That was downtown, so only like 10 minutes from my first host mom. It was very easy to get there.
What metro station was that one off of?
I'm losing the metro stations in my head. It's horrible.
No, it wasn't La Moneda because I would usually walk there. It was Los Héroes.
Los Héroes? Okay.
Héroes, yes. What is the other one? Toesca?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those 2. I would say that was most structured, like a class you would see in the U.S. It'd usually be stuff like up on a PowerPoint. We would like go about things the way that we go about Spanish classes at Iowa. But we had that Mondays and Wednesdays. And for that class, sometimes we would just go to the market. What else would we do? We went to the market twice. I think we went to a museum, the pre-Columbian one.
Oh, yeah.
That
one's good.
I would say the only part that I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool was they had the little statues that they have at Easter Island.
Little Moai.
Yes. That was really impressive. Mm-hmm. Compared to the other ones in Santiago, I was like, I feel like this is a bit overhyped, but that was very cool.
I didn't go to that museum, so I can't say anything on that, but maybe you two need to have a conversation just based on y'all's facial expressions after we're done here.
We could agree to disagree. But that's how that class was. And then, so that was at my one university, and Mondays and Wednesdays. And I had looked at the distances between university, which CIEE gives you the option to pick between 3. So URP, where they had their one class hosted, and all the like program coordinators, like their main office was there. And then you had Católica and Chile. Not quite, but yes, not affiliated. The soccer team is not affiliated, but. Yeah, you know that. And it was nice because our first week being there, let me get into this, because our first week we went on tours of all 3 of the universities. So that kind of helped with my decision. But I was really stressed when I got there. I got there July 28th. And the first day of classes was August 5th. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're not going to choose our classes for a few days. And I was like, no, like, this is a full-on university. Like, this is my first day of class. Like, I've never been here. I don't know even how to take the metro here. And they're like, no, like, you just need to chill out. Like, this is just how we do it here. I was like, what? What? Because here at Iowa, you register for a class 6 months in advance, and it says where your class is going to be, like what building, so you can like coordinate how you're going to walk there, all this stuff. And it freaked me out, but I was able to calm down a bit because while I was abroad, I was just taking classes for my Spanish minor at the time, which is now a major, which I was like, well, I only need technically one class, and the CIE one does that. And then I was going for 2 gen eds, so very easy to find something for that. But it did create a lot of stress with people in my program, but there was genuinely nothing that the people at CIE could do. They were just like, we'll figure it out. So I genuinely remember my first day of classes was actually at Chile. I decided to go there just because I've always been a big public school girl, and I was like, I'm just going to say there, like, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to go to a university that combines religion with academics. That's just my personal opinion. And I really liked the Chile campus. It was in Ñuñoa. So yeah, that was that. But my first day...
Out in the Ñuñoa campus, not in like the one that's right in the middle of town off of the Chile metro stop?
No, that's their, what is it? It's like their central house. So that isn't, they don't hold classes there.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, honestly, same, because when I thought, Chile Católica, you look it up on a map, and it's these 2, like, beautiful big houses.
Yeah.
But no, they don't have classes there. I was actually at the Católica building because I hadn't chosen quite yet, and they had this big thing for international students, and it was just beautiful there. They were, like, dancing the cueca. They had this huge presentation about all the stuff they have for international students. I never could go into the Chile one because they were like doing construction on it, but no, it wasn't there. It was actually like a campus. It was a small campus. Like there were lots of buildings, like from the one, and there was soccer fields. There was an athletic facility.
Down in Ñuñoa?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Kind of by intersection of like Ñuñoa and Macul.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not too far from the National Stadium. I would drive by it every day on the metro for my one host family.
I don't recall seeing that at all. Like, I was down seeing as many soccer games as I could get there. I don't recall. I'll have to look that up later.
I'll show you pictures, don't worry. But yeah, I remember just my first day of class. I'd only been there one time about a week ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I barely even know how to get there. And the night before, I was looking on my phone, and they had not released the locations of the classrooms yet. And I was like, what the heck? And so I just get there really early. And then another thing, they don't have signs on the buildings. So I genuinely had no idea where any of my classes were. Every time I had to go up to someone in Spanish, and like my nervous Spanish at the time, be like, help me, like I don't know where my class is, like I'm just an exchange student. But at Chile, I took a class, and also all my classes were like fully in Spanish, taught by like professors from Chile and then UREP, and with Chileans. In my ethics class, there was only one other exchange student. So yeah, I took ethics, and then I took a history of like the 20th century in contemporary America, and that just talked about a bunch of the dictatorships and like stuff that was going on throughout Latin America. And in that class, there was only 3 exchange students. And then at UREP, I took a music and social movements class, and that also really just focused on the dictatorships in Latin America, and then the music that went along with it, which in Latin America was a huge part of just like having a sense of like solidarity with a lot of people.
Did you get a lot of Los Prisioneros out of that?
Yeah, I did. But yeah, I would say it was such a crazy experience. UREP, like I said, it was very much like it was in the city center. There's just a bunch of buildings. You walk between building, and you're like on the street. And that class I took, I loved it so much. And there was one other exchange student, and she was also from the U.S. We still keep in contact. I love her bunches. But I feel like the biggest thing I took away from Chilean University is I would go, and I'd be like, oh yeah, it's so hard here, isn't it? And maybe this is me just studying STEM, like in the US, but I swear, like in my classes, the most assignments I had in one singular class was 6 across the entire semester. Like in my ethics class, 2 exams. 2 exams. I was like, this. Yeah, in my music class, it was 2 exams and then 1 final presentation. So I honestly just felt so chill while I was there. Like, I had my Spanish class, but I was like, whatever. But so just the differences between academic cultures also coming back has been insane. Coming back with all my classes, I'm like, what the heck? And also while I was there at my classes, I speak like pretty good Spanish. I understand pretty well. But it's just Chilean Spanish. We'll talk about this later. It is rough. And then being in an academic setting, like I would generally just be sitting there with like my iPad out. I'd be like, okay, just writing down every word I knew. That's genuinely how it went. And I ended up doing fine. But yeah, academic culture between U.S. and there is insane. But then even between my 2 host universities, UDP was private. It was downtown. And then UD Chile, very prestigious school down there. Craziest thing, like it was a lot like University of Iowa, I would say. But I remember talking to my parents, who were like, how was your first day of school, And I literally was like, I felt like young Sheldon. Like, I went, and I'm usually a pretty extroverted person, but it was intimidating, like, going, and, like, people could look at me, and they'd be like, oh, my gosh, like, this international student, And especially younger people, from my experience at, like, my 2 universities, they speak really quietly, they mumble, I don't understand Chilean slang, I've been there for a week. And it was very intimidating. And a big thing, too, UD Chile, it's not a smoke-free campus. And they loved their cigarettes. So I'd be, like, walking through, like, all the cigarette smoke, like, oh, my gosh, like, what the heck? But I probably could just say, like, so much about it. My professors, too, they were amazing, especially my ones at UD Chile. I remember going up to my ethics professor on the first day of class, and I was like, are there any readings I need to do, But I forgot the word for readings in Spanish because I was so nervous. And he was like, English? but it wasn't in, like, a demeaning way. Like, he was very supportive. I didn't really understand much in that ethics class. I'm going to be so honest. I'm going to have to do, like, a crash course on ethics because what the heck? Like,
come on down to my media ethics course with Dr. Brett Johnson. He's the GOAT.
I might have to. I really might have to. But I remember, like, we were just talking, and he was like, where are you from? California? New York? And I was like, no. And I was telling him about Iowa, And he was like, oh, so, like, are you studying, like, ethics? Like, history? Like, all this stuff. And I was like, no, I'm studying biology. And he was like, what are you doing as a biology student taking an ethics class in Chile? And I was like, I honestly wonder. Like, I really don't know what I'm doing here. But he was very supportive through it all. Like, he was like, you know what? She has no background in ethics. She's still learning Spanish. He was very nice to me. Like, shout out that man so much.
Shout out, yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember, so those exams, I'll tell you about the exams. They were just, oh my gosh, they were 2 written exams. And I remember I walked into the exam, and he's handing out these pieces of paper, and I'm like, okay, where's the exam? And then he goes to the front of the room, number 1, and he starts reading it off, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
oh no.
Like, yes. And he's like, okay, now write an essay.
No.
I was like, dude. I ended up getting an A+. I don't know how. Literally, God blessed me. God blessed me on that one. And I went into the second exam being like, okay, light work, no reaction. No, like, I had to get an email back being like, hey, like, respectfully, you failed this. Was there, like, a miss? So the first one I actually did good on. I was like, that wasn't just him being nice. But I failed a section of the second exam. But they were like, hey, like, we understand. Like, both me and the other exchange student failed it.
At least you had solidarity in that.
Yep. But no, they were generally like, hey, just do it online. Like, we understand. Like, sometimes there's that language barrier. Like, you've been learning in your second language. Just read the question and then type it out on a doc and send it to us. And I was like, okay, thank you. So that was literally it for that class. Also, my classes at UD Chile, it was only a 50% attendance requirement, which was really nice. Which it wasn't. They didn't take it and be like, okay, 10% of your grade is attendance like they do in the U.S., then calculate it in. It was just your grade is your grade, but if you get less than a 50%, you fail the class. So I was like, oh, okay. So I can miss a lot of class. But then my history class, oh my gosh, I won't say this is like my number one advice for anyone, but I would highly recommend at some point in your life, if you've only ever lived in the U.S. or studied in the U.S., to take a history class outside of the U.S.
I agree. Oh
Yes.
my God. Can't recommend it enough.
It opened my eyes genuinely so much because, oh, well, shoot. I also realized this when I got to Chile. Because a lot of the people I knew, they were studying, like, history related, like, IR, what is it? IR, what is the other big one?
Poli-sci.
Poli-sci. IR and poli-sci. Those were the biggest ones. Yep. You too.
Yeah, that's
You
us.
too. And I was sitting there like, I actually don't know any of this because I'm studying biology. And I realized, I was like, my last history class that would have mentioned anything about Latin America would have been my freshman year of high school.
Yikes.
And I was there my junior year of college. So I was like, I have a lot to catch up on because so many of the stuff, like, I didn't know. But it was, like, such a great environment to learn it all in. And I remember, so for my history class, the format was an oral exam, an in-person, like, written exam, and then, like, 3 essays. And I remember emailing my professor just being like, hey, like, can I bring a cheat sheet, to the oral exam, like some vocab? Because I'm really nervous. I'm just going to forget something, And she was like, do you speak English? I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, me too. Let's do it in English. Which I was like, you know what? That is the one time I'd be like, okay, yes, let's do it in English.
And that was the one time Monica told us not to have any, like, cheat sheets or anything, or wouldn't help us, was during the oral exams. Like, she was cutthroat on that. You're going to sit down, you're going to face me, and we're going to do this oral exam. Like, hope you remember the vocabulary.
Yeah, I was very grateful for her. And then after, we generally just talked about, like, the U.S. and what was going on in the U.S. And she was like, tell me everything. Like, that was a lot.
Well, how much time do you have?
I know. Well, and she had gotten her PhD at Michigan. Something also really interesting that my classmates had told me about her. Don't know 100% if it's true or not. Okay. But during the dictatorship, she was in college. Okay. And she basically pretended like she supported the dictatorship and got the experience to sit down in a room alone with Pinochet and interview him.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
And, like, it was like you had 7 minutes, you couldn't bring anything in, and it was just, like, heavy security stuff. So she interviewed him and then, like, went out and was just, like, writing stuff down. And then she ended up, like, leaving the country, like, very soon after to come to the U.S.
Wow.
And, yeah, so I was like, after that, I would look at her and be like, that is just insane. Like, that takes some serious guts, And, like, I can't imagine, like, this woman, like, just the way she, like, talked about, like, her passions and, like, her life. I'd be like, I would never, like, the amount of fear that must, like, instill in someone. Insane. But I remember, like, the conversation we just had about the U.S. A lot of people either went 2 ways with, like, my professors and students when they'd be like, oh, where are you from? Because you could pretty obviously tell, like, I wasn't Chilean. When I would say, oh, like, I'm from the U.S., it was always this, like, breath in, this, like, inhale. And I was like, and sometimes the conversation would end, like, pretty soon after, which I was like, I understand, honestly. But then other times I'd be like, dude, like, tell me everything. And I'd be like, trust, like, insider information.
MJ, you ever get anything with that, like, people who were, because I agree, it kind of went, like, one of 2 ways. It's like, oh, you're from the U.S.? All right, whatever. I assume, like, at least looking at Kara and I, it's a little bit more obvious, but it's like, all right, we assume that. And then others, it's like, okay, tell me more, or, like, explain to me where you're from. I'm like, y'all know where Chicago is.
I would also say Chicago.
We'll start with there. But MJ, you ever get that?
Yeah, I would say most people were definitely approaching it with a sense of curiosity. And I remember during our orientation, Jorge, our program director, he brought up this curiosity, and he said people will bring up Trump, people will ask you about it, and it's more just like they're looking to have a conversation with you, and they might not be the most knowledgeable about it, and so they're just going to open with a question that that might be an assumption, but I mean they're really just asking to learn more from someone who lives in the US. So
Well, that
And-
kind of, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I feel like especially for the two of us, because you weren't down there. Well, Trump had been elected.
I was down there when the election happened.
Mhm.
And then, like, I voted from Chile, and then, like, the month after, and kind of, like, the immediate, like, shock and aftermath. But I wasn't there when he was, like, president. He hadn't been sworn in yet.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just think being there with Trump as president just added a lot of extra weight.
I
One
agree.
crazy thing I need to share. This has been in the back of my mind for so long. So for my Music of Social Movements class at UDP, we would usually spend the first day of the week talking about like the social movement, like what was going on politically, like the history of everything. And then the next day, we would watch videos on YouTube of the music, okay?
Not a bad gig.
Love that.
I know, it was very chill. But I remember there was this one commercial, and it took me a few times to completely understand what was going on. It was the Department of Homeland Security in the U.S. with Kristi Noem, and it was basically just videos of detainees being, like, put on planes of prisons, and, like, it was always, like, people, like, around would, like, laugh, and I'd be like, what the heck? And I ended up, like, looking into it, and I was like, it was saying if you know someone who has come to the U.S. illegally, go to this site and fill this out, and they can get a free flight back. And I was genuinely like, what the heck? Like, this has to be, like, some, like, sort of joke. And I feel like figuring that out, this was about, like, halfway into my program. I think that just really put a lot of things into perspective, why some people, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm from the U.S. It was kind of that, like, inhale and be like, okay, well, it was nice to meet you. You know, I don't support that at all, but it's like, you know, like I still am connected to that in a way. Like I'm a citizen in that country. So just seeing that in a different country where I was there for a longer period of time was it was so heartbreaking, honestly, and just so disappointing. I was like, generally, what, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it was
So-
a lot of interview. So I was doing journalism work down there, and I was mostly writing about experiences that, like, I was doing. So, you know, I ate llama steak, food review. I went, you know, I was chronicling the Chilean national team and their games because I was going to those. And a lot of the ones that I had done, or the interviews I had done, were about stuff with, like, the dictatorship, but not that it's like a worn topic. I'm not gonna, like, you know, put that, but it's like, it's a pretty obvious topic when you're doing journalism. But it was really weird to see that flip after the election happened, because then everyone wanted to talk to me. And when I was interviewing, they were talking to me about, well, what comes next. So I stopped doing a lot of, like, events coverage, also because football season had ended, and I was talking with people. And my last article that I did was with a Chilean diplomat, and we were just talking about how Chilean foreign policy, Chilean relations, regional relations now have to change in light of what happened there. And that was a completely different conversation, not even on the table. They're like, yeah, we'll talk to you about the dictatorship. We'll talk to you about all this kind of stuff. Now everyone came so invested, like, we need to talk to you because how is this going to affect us? We know that it's going to affect us. Do you know how this is going to affect us? And that was really crazy to see. And again, just like a perspective putting into kind of thing. Because, like, you know, you shared that, and MJ, you were there. Like, I left before he was sworn in, before all of this, but, like, MJ, did you get to see any of those kind of, like, primary reactions? And then after this, I want to switch so we can get, you know, just some more lighter topics, more fun. But I do want to ask this question, like, did you see it, since we were there at three very distinct stages?
Sure. I can't recall any conversations I had with Chileans, like, directly asking about, like, what comes next with the Trump administration and how it affects Chile. Though I will echo what Kara said. Like, it was very odd to be watching it from so far away. I was there over his inauguration and the first couple months. And it was just, I don't know. I mean, like, every morning you wake up, you check the news, you feel a pit in your stomach, and then you go and you have this in your head while you're going out and operating in a society where that's not at the forefront of everyone else's head, because they're living with a different government, with different priorities, they have different focuses, and so it felt isolating in ways. I mean, obviously I could connect with some of my friends in my cohort, but it did feel very isolating to be worried about something that it wasn't like you could feel it among the whole city. It was just kind of like you were carrying it with you.
Yeah, that we had some of that too. Post election, definitely had that, Kara. I'm sure you had that the whole time. But yeah, it was good because what you two both said of like, you need to take a history class outside of the U.S., something that will cover U.S.
Yes.
actions, but it not being here. Getting then to live said thing of like, I carry all of this with me despite the fact that I'm 6,000 miles away, and different, like, I don't have to care if I don't want to, but it still like is affecting down here.
Mm-hmm.
That was really huge for me to see, not only as a journalist, but as a political science student, as a student of history, of culture. That was big for me. But talking about culture, and I want to just shift us gears here, because this is a great conversation, but we have so much more to cover is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to talk about like Chilean culture and being in Chile, because none of us had been to Chile or anywhere quite like it before. I mean, heck, Carrie, you hadn't even been out of the country before.
No.
So MJ, I'll start with you. Talk to us just, about living in Chile, being in Chile. What was that like for you, based on any expectations you might have had or
Sure.
or not?
Yeah. And yeah, I had never traveled to Latin America before. So I can't say how it compares to other peoples and cultures in Latin America. I've heard that Chileans are more reserved compared to other people. But at the same time, I had so many just sweet and kind interactions with complete strangers. When I was in, varying levels of distress, there were strangers who would come up to me and just check and make sure I either knew where I was, or I was in a safe place, or if like I needed help finding directions or something like that. So I never had any sort of like rude interaction with people. I mean, would you guys agree? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
I had a few.
Did you?
Yeah, it wasn't ever anything bad. Like, it would just be like mocking my Spanish a little bit, but it's like okay, like whatever.
Well, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? Like, they can mock your Spanish, but guess what, genius? Everyone else is mocking y'all's Spanish.
That's true.
Yeah, but yeah, like, it wasn't, I'd say, from my experience there, like, I would say the good outweighed like the negatives 100% as like receptiveness. But at the same time, like, when I talk about receptiveness and like the few bad interactions I had, I was like, you know what, like, I'm from the US, like, it's fine. It's really fine. Like, I can see where this is coming from, But all great. Like, Chileans were very nice. Like, one thing I really enjoyed that reminded me a lot of Iowa, in Santiago, they would do this in this big city. If you'd be walking past someone, like, sometimes you're walking past someone and you're kind of looking at each other, you would say hello. Be like, hello, how are you? Good. Keep walking. You would get in an elevator, you would get on the bus. Off the bus, you would always be like, thank you, bye. Like, you would yell that getting off the bus. You would always say hello getting on. In an elevator, every time you would get on, you would say hello. You would leave, you would say goodbye. I really enjoyed that. I miss that a lot here. I don't think people take the time to just, like, acknowledge others here. That has been my biggest reverse culture shock coming back. Like, generally, I've gotten actually pretty angry about it. I just, like, I see it so much here, and I'm like, oh, this is just so rude. But I'm like, you know what? They're not intending to be rude, It's just, I don't feel as acknowledged, my presence here. And it also was difficult when I first got to Chile, because Chileans stare. Do you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
They
Yep.
do.
Yes.
Like, and even, like, the other places I traveled in Latin America, they wouldn't stare, and I'd be like, why aren't you staring at me? Like, why, But I would be on the metro, just someone staring at me. I'd be on the street, someone staring at me in my classes, someone staring at me. I was like, what the heck? Like, you know, so coming from the US where, you know, I don't feel acknowledged as much to like being in Chile and having like all that constant pressure on me, it was really intimidating at first. And
You could feel those eyes on the metro, couldn't you?
No, literally. So, you know, I would say I'm pretty extroverted, but like there, like I was a lot more shy, and I really realized I was like, in English and Spanish, I have different personalities, which was hard because in English, I feel like I'm more extroverted and people here, you know, are kind of more reserved. But then in Spanish, I feel like people are a lot more extroverted. They're a lot more loving, and I couldn't like express myself in that way.
But your Spanish is more like survival mode.
Exactly.
Of just, we need to say what we need to say and move on to the next task.
Yeah. And I'm not that type of person at all. Like I love having those deep conversations. I'm a very vulnerable person, and I couldn't do that in Spanish. So that was difficult for me. But back to like cultural stuff, one of the biggest things that also has stuck with me is during my orientation with CIEE, I remember the program coordinator, she was talking about, I don't like when I go to the US because they make me check, you know, my like, what is it, like race or something, or like ethnic background. And she's like, I'm not Latina, I'm just Chilean. And I was kind of like, for the longest time, I was like, what? So I ended up asking, there was someone through CIEE who was also a student at UDP. So she's kind of like an intern. And I remember being like, Ignacia, like, hey, can you like explain this to me? Like, this has been on my mind. It's like 3 months at that point. It's like, can you talk about this? She was like, yeah, honestly, like we all, like, not we all, but like a lot of Chileans feel that way. She's like, you know, we have the Andes on the one side, the ocean on the other. You know, she's like, we just feel like pretty closed off from the rest of Latin America. She was like, you know, when you think of like a Latina, you probably think of like a Colombian or something, like someone who's like really loud, like spicy food. They do not eat any spice. No. I hated that so much. But I was like, oh, you know, like that's interesting. So it's interesting now going back and thinking about it, being like, yeah, like I was in Latin America, like I wanted that like Latin American experience, but I was like, Chileans don't consider themselves like Latinos. So also just, well, not all, but like from the things I've heard and from like a lot of experiences, like I think Chile does have a lot of like differences compared to other parts, and like the southern cone in general, I would say as well. It's very different from like northern South America. So yeah, that was just my experience with it. I don't know if you guys had anything that was similar, but
I mean, yeah, I agree with a lot of things that you said, and the staring I like have almost forgotten about, but when you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah I remember that. But well, it just also reminded me about the PDA, and
oh Lord.
But the thing is, like, they stare for everything else, but they don't stare for the PDA, and that was definitely a culture shock when I got there, because PDA is just like completely permissible in basically anywhere and everywhere.
Dude, some of the things I saw in the metro, I was like, you can't be serious, right?
And the people just mind their business. And at first I was really like, do we have to do this in the train right now? But I feel like as I spent more time with it, I was like, okay, like if it's just a couple who's happy and in love, like that's a beautiful thing that you can respect. And
you get used to it, but that first hammer to the head is like, oh my word.
Yeah.
But and I mean, honestly, by the end I kind of respected it. I was like, if these people, I mean, it's just two people in a happy loving relationship, then like, yeah, I guess I can ignore that. But I did find it kind of ironic that was the one thing that they didn't stare at. Yes. It's like, I'm just sitting here with my backpack on, but if you see what's over there, like, you don't care about that.
And like, you know, you're pretty tall, I'm pretty tall, you get all the stares for that, but as soon as, you know, somebody's making out in the corner of the metro, all the eyes are just like gone.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine for you guys, because even there I felt tall, and I feel like I'm like a pretty average height, you know.
Yeah.
I especially like older women, I feel like there were a lot of really tiny older women. They were like, yes, like my first mom, I swear to God, she wasn't even like 5 foot, 90 pounds. And here I was like, I feel so big, like I'm being stared at. Like, also just, like figuring out like how to like take up space in a different country. Well, because this was the first time I'd ever left the country, and I was just kind of like, oh, like I'm really shy. Like, I don't know, like, I'm gonna bump into people getting off the metro. Like, my backpack's gonna get close to the metro door, and they're gonna be yelling at me. Like, shoot.
Been there, yeah.
Yeah, it's a time, but I would say that was also a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing I just noticed about just being out in the city and stuff is I think people pay attention to like their fashion a lot more than around here, and especially like going to university. Like here I think we're very used to, you know, being comfy. You're taking hard classes, you're just trying to get through the day. I get that you're committed to a lot, but I would never step out of my apartment in Santiago in like sweatpants or and a sweatshirt, because I just feel like people, like, I saw so many interesting hairstyles and makeup and jewelry and, you know, shoes, just the whole look. It was very exciting for me to see. It was just really everyone you looked at, it looked like they at least had some intention before they stepped outside and went throughout the city or went to their classes. So that was very refreshing to me. And one of my friends in the group, shout out Ellie, we were just like, I don't know, it just like ignited something in us to be surrounded by so many people who were really intentional about their self-expression and the way that they presented themselves.
And I was like, it's 90 degrees out here, dog, and I got to walk to class. We got khaki cargo shorts and a soccer jersey. I got to be able to breathe. And, you know, the building being open air, too, because I know you were there when it was, like, kind of cooler. But, like, during the end of our time, we were cooking in there. Holy moly.
We had maybe, like, 2 weeks at the end where it got cooler. But, no, we were cooking.
Yeah. I will say, like, with the fashion, it's not, like, what you would expect in Europe, because I was like, ooh, like, do I need to wear, like, dress pants? I remember I asked Sean before I went to Chile, I was like, hey, like, what do women wear? And he was like, you're asking the wrong person. I was like, oh, my gosh, dude. But I would agree, like...
Get your best hat.
I know. I'm like, but coming back, especially, I've had a lot of, like, culture shocks that... To me, like, they just seem like a lot of judgment of me coming back to the U.S. I feel like my biggest feeling that has came with, like, the reverse culture shock of coming back has actually been anger. And I'm not a very angry person. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like seeing, like, a lot of different, like, cultures, like, the anger I feel of being, like, people aren't acknowledging me. Like, people don't... I step into an elevator, and people don't look at me, and they don't say hello. And, like, I see someone I had class with last year, and we walk past each other, and they ignore me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's just, like, a normal thing here. And I'm like, so a stranger would say hello to me in Santiago. And then also, you know, being here, a big thing, I'm like, I don't know, like, I'm really not a judgmental person, but coming back and, like, I remember putting on clothes and wanting to be comfy to go to the library when I was at home. I always have to ask someone, be like, do I look okay? Like, do I look fine? Like, wearing sweats on sweats.
Yeah.
You know, but going to my classes, like, here I'm just like, dang, people really don't put effort into their appearance here near as much, you know? So, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So
I had this realization, and it was, to me, it was interesting, and this was like the majority of people who were our age, because a lot of the adults, they were definitely more nicely dressed for pretty much any occasion, but a lot of, like, more goth emo kind of style, and I know apparently those are supposed to be like separate things, but just, like, you know, bear with me, like, a lot of dark makeup, dark clothing, darker hair,
piercings,
lots of piercings. That to me was really like, we stepped into grunge Latin America. I was like, huh.
Yeah, it was all black fits. Yeah.
You know, not that it was that's a problem in any way. I was just like, this is so curious. I did not expect, like, this particular niche to be the predominant style among young people, and it really was. Most of the young people I met, dark clothes, dark hair, lots of piercings, and all significantly shorter than me. But I know, like, around our campus there was that, but we were kind of like a more smaller, kind of closed off university. But was it like that when you were out in Chile and Udp, like in the downtown, where the other kids kind of dressed like that if they weren't in their best, you know?
I would say so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, it was interesting because people, they would dress casual usually. Like, it's not like they were, like, when you think of, oh, they were, like, really dressed up. but it's like they were very intentional
Yeah.
about like the things that they would wear, and I was like,
Definitely, yeah.
interesting, you know.
Yeah. It
So-
wasn't like fancy,
No,
but it was
but you could tell that
they
they
had their own
put
style.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially the
effort.
men.
Yeah.
Especially the men. Oh my god. Sorry guys. But yeah, like that huge difference between, I'd say women here
Absolutely.
like in general, they do put some effort in, but like the men in Chile, I was like, okay, like they would have like piercings, and it's like it would look like
Accessories.
I know, like
yeah.
really nice like clothes that you would consider nice streetwear here. I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, wow, like this is nice. I like this. But
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
yeah.
And not to make an assumption of like an entire generation, but everyone just seems so artsy. Like artsier than when I would step out here. No offense to the University of Iowa. But yeah, everyone just seemed very artsy, and I feel like it was reflected in the city as well. I mean, it had great museums, but it would also have lots of like music festivals and art like pop-up fairs. It would I just feel like it was very accessible for people to make, enjoy, and sell art
Yes.
in many forms, which I think is very important to cultivate in your society if you're the government, for example.
Shout outs to Mercado Bio Bio for a lot of that, and some other insane, crazy products that they sold there too. I agree with the artsy thing. The other thing I was gonna yeah. So if the dudes weren't wearing like their best, or they weren't wearing that more like, you know, like darker-esque toned theme, I thought it was hilarious because I saw this all the time, was people wearing Caterpillar, like the construction brand stuff all the time, beanies. They would have like jackets with them, and I found a store in the Costanera that was a Caterpillar like merch store, and people were in there
I've
buying
never
that.
heard of this.
I was like,
Me neither.
huh? Of all of like the U.S. brands, because like I
Not
get
even
it.
Carhartt.
Well, it's like, yeah, why not
Or
Carhartt? I know
Dickies?
it's probably hard to import, but Caterpillar, really? Question mark. So I think my roommate got like a Caterpillar like hat or something from there, and that to me was the weirdest thing. But next thing I want to talk about too, and we do kind of have to like speed run these just a little bit.
Okay.
Unfortunately, food. So
Oh
the
no.
the base level is that, for those of y'all who don't know, like the base level of Latino or of Chilean food to other Latinos is how we view British food, and that it's super bland and it sucks. So you kind of had to go around to find interesting food stuff. But MJ, put me on game of some of like the most favorite, weirdest, like funniest foods that you got down with while you were there.
Well, I'll preface by saying that my host mom was maybe the greatest cook I've ever met. So I really got lucky there. I was eating great every night, and it was really fun because sometimes I wouldn't even know what I was eating, but it was
She'd be
good.
like,
it
"Yo,
was good
take
every
this."
time. Yeah. Yeah. Not the most flavorful of cuisine, I will say. I feel like even when there were versions that existed in like Peru or Argentina or something, the Chilean version would be the most simplified version of it. But I mean, some of my favorites, I really enjoyed cazuela, which is like a stew, like tomato-based stew, and it would just have like when I had it, it would be like one hunk of beef, one hunk of sweet potato, one hunk of
Wait,
yuca.
you had it with beef?
Yeah.
I always had it with chicken. Did I do with
Oh.
chicken too, or did I?
Beef. I had mine with beef.
I only had it with beef.
Shoot.
But it would just be like, and then one like half of a corn on the cob. So it would just be these like 4 huge chunks of things sitting in this tomato base.
The 4
stew.
elements, it is on you to
Yeah.
combine them.
Up to you to
Yes.
like tear it apart.
Yes.
But it was really good. Like and then why is the name escaping me? My host mom would make ceviche, and it was just, she wouldn't make the Chilean version because she added a lot of different elements to it, but it would have a lot of different types of seafood, and it would have lettuce. It would have 2 different like ways of preparing choclo, which is big corn, and then yuca and sweet potato, and it was just so fresh, and I loved the seafood there, and the choclo was always good, and I don't know, anything my host mom made I loved. So and like my first afternoon there, she came into my room with just a glass full of this orange liquid, and she was like, I made this melon juice for you. Like she just like squeezed an entire melon and gave me the juice, and it was so fresh, and it was just like a lovely sunny day in Santiago, and that was my first day there.
I thought you were gonna say that orange stuff was mote con huesillo.
Oh,
Because
love.
It's so
I-
lit. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I remember when I had that for the first time. First of all, I didn't know it was gonna be cold, but then I was like, oh, because it's so sweet. Or the one that I had, it was so sweet.
Yeah.
I was like, are my teeth gonna fall out with it? How did they just eat this normally? And that was a weird experience, but I really liked it. And then I found a bar that served it in like a mixed drink form. And
Interesting.
that was a really interesting experience. But I was like handed this cold glass of like brownish orange liquid with a thing in the middle and was told here, drink this. Yeah, it was whatever. Carrie, you're giving a look right now.
I didn't like that the food was like DIY. Like yes, mote, like you had to like
That's
take the
true.
peach and like it's like okay, at least slice the peach.
And
Maybe
if
I'm
you-
just lazy and fat. I don't know.
If you like bought it in the city, they'd give you a plastic spoon too. So like you really couldn't get anywhere.
At that point, I would just be scooping it out and like
Biting,
gnawing on
yeah.
it. Like, what the hell? But cazuela, oh my gosh, so good. I had that. My host family, they made it on a rainy day, and I remember like it just like put me to sleep, and I had it for lunch the next day. Generally woke up at noon, had lunch at like 2 p.m. And then right after, like I was in the middle of eating my soup. I'm like, okay, it's time for a nap. Like it always. I'm like, what did they put in this? Because it would put me to sleep. But I feel like we have to talk about the completos, like
Oh.
the
Yeah.
hot dog with just avocado, mayo.
Obscene amount of mayo.
Always the mayo.
You ever had a
and, like,
big
a-
ass hot dog and it's wet?
Drowning. Okay,
Yes.
I love hot dogs. I'll go on the record and say it. I was excited when I found out that was like a main Chilean cuisine. I was disappointed every time. Every time. It would be like a boiled hot. It would be like 2 or 3 boiled hot dogs lined up in a giant bun and then just drowned with like 4 times the amount of mayo and avocado and like I guess whatever else they could find. But it was just like a lot of sauce and a
You ever have the ones that
Fully
had
cooked hot
cheese
dog.
and mayonnaise on it?
I don't think so. I only had it 3
Holy
times.
Wait, it's not even dairy. Mayo is egg, right?
Oh, it still hurts just
Maybe,
as bad, but
For you especially.
yeah.
But yeah, those were mid. I'm just not a big. I don't eat a lot of like meat in my diet. Like, and if I am having like meat, it's usually chicken. So I didn't enjoy the processed meats, the red meats, but the asados were so. Because CIE for their Independence Day, and then Thanksgiving they did an asado, and then my first host mom for Independence Day. Oh my gosh, she spent like 24 hours cooking for us. And it was just the two of us. She had like so much meat, and it was the most flavorful meat I'd ever like eaten. It was insane. Like I'm not a big red meat person, but I think it was like maybe even a pork, but it was so good. And like CIE, they generally bought, I couldn't even say how many pounds, but they would like, one of the program coordinators, I think he spent like 3 hours straight grilling. And he would just give it to
Wow.
us at a time, be like, okay, eat this, eat this. And, oh, it was.
Sounds gorgeous.
I know, I'm like, I just need to go back and have an asado,
Yeah.
honestly. But, yeah.
And MJ,
Ooh.
you didn't get in on the Independence Day asados too, like.
I wish.
We're going back, the 3 of us.
Oh yeah. Hey,
Yes.
down for that.
Yes.
I was
But-
also gonna say really got into maracuya while I was down there. Never had before in the States.
Modern.
Passion fruit.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Passion fruit flavored anything and everything. Choose it every time.
Yes. Did you guys have banana split ice cream or any ice cream?
Yes, not in Santiago, but yes.
In Buenos
Mm-mm.
Aires?
No, in Mendoza, other side of Argentina.
It's Argentina.
But like,
you know? Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was also, so I agree. Anytime you have the option for passion fruit, anything there, yes. But if you're also getting ice cream and there's a banana flavor, so good. So good every time. I miss it so much.
because I'm not big on like banana flavored candy, banana kind of stuff. It doesn't translate well. But we were at this ice cream joint. And they had banana split. And I was like, you know what? Something about it was just calling to me. I said, let's do it. Let's get banana split. Top 5 ice cream I've probably ever had my entire life. It was so good. It tasted like all the elements of a banana split. We went back there 4 days in a row, and we got banana split ice cream 4 days in a row. It was that good. So it was not in Santiago, but shout outs to that. On top of Cerro San Cristobal, they did have a guy who sold maracuya ice cream, except it had the seeds in it. And I did not you can eat the seeds, but it was like big ones, like this is a real harvested one, not a GMO one. And I felt like a farmer out there because I was eating the thing. I was just like spitting seeds every 5 seconds. Like I just found like a little outcropping and was like spitting seeds while eating my maracuya ice cream. Loved it. I miss that so much. And the juice, I miss the juice so much. Oh, it was so good.
I mean, all the fruits really. You could walk by like a vendor on the street, like on your way home from school, and get a bag full of peaches for like, it'd be like $3 or something. Like it was just so nice to get. Or like on my metro stop, like on my way to school a couple of times, there was a fruit stand, and I would just get like a $2 box of grapes. And it would take me like 15 seconds, and then I'm back on my like commute.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get too much on the fruit thing, and you probably had this too, where like a lot of stuff was either coming out of season or not in season yet, while like during our fall semester, because I missed grape and cherry season. Everyone was like, you gotta have the grapes, you gotta have the cherries.
I was there for cherry.
We're
at
okay
the very end.
because grapes came like Jorge sent me a picture. He was like, yo, grapes are back. I was like, oh man,
Grapes are in.
They are in. I didn't get in on any of the cherries. Maybe I just missed them, but like everyone said, oh, gotta get the grapes, gotta get the cherries.
The
Couldn't
kiwis?
do that. Oh, the
The
kiwis were good.
Wait, did you see any of the kiwis there?
I don't know if I got on the kiwis. No.
They were like double the size.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It was like one kiwi was generally like 2 kiwis puts it like.
I gotta go back.
Yes. It was, oh my gosh, so good. The oranges were also really good when I was first there in the winter. Yeah, I didn't really eat a lot of produce there. Like, in the U.S., I eat a lot of produce. It was really difficult for me in Santiago, I will say. But, I don't know, maybe it was just my first time traveling, and I was like, I didn't know how to eat, do it properly, so, yeah.
No fruit, no problems, right? So I want to ask, and I'll ask too that you just keep it brief, but you guys taking such a big step in going to Chile and experiencing that, Carrie, this is your first time out of the country even. What is like the one piece of advice or like the main big advice that you would give to someone who's looking to step outside of their comfort zone, why they should choose Chile, why they should choose Latin America? What is your pitch for that? You can take a sec to think about it. Don't worry.
I feel like as far as choosing USAC, they have a very well-supported program. You're never going to be just completely stranded on your own. There's people at the school that you can contact, and there's the host families if you're living with a host family who are there to support you. So you are never going to be completely stranded. I would say before you go, do your research. I mean, look up even just a little bit about maybe, their political situation, their recent history, any, major holidays coming up that you might be able to participate in. Just to show that, you value the culture that you're about to participate in, that you're about to go live in, and you don't want to overstep. And while you're there, you don't have to say yes to every single thing. Obviously, follow your own comfort zone and your own boundaries, but, don't shy away from exploring and taking risks. It was just so fun in Santiago. It's really easy to get around with the metro station. I miss that city so much because of how easy it was to get around in, and take advantage of that. There's always an event going on. It has great nature that you can access through the bus system as well. It's not that far out of the city. It's just, you don't have to be bored ever. There's really so many experiences that you can find. So, yeah, take advantage of that.
I looked up a quote because I was trying to like say something to you. Do you remember this? I was like, the road less traveled, the road less paved. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
I found the quote. And I feel like this really like encapsulates my experience, especially with my first time going outside the country and having it be me studying abroad in Latin America, like a region that, you know, like even in high school, like I already had like a connection to. But it says the two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that one has made all the difference. Oh my gosh, I just butchered that. But I just, like, I feel like a lot of people not going to Latin America and a lot of people just having a lot of assumptions of Latin America, even though they have not seen it for themselves. I would say you just need to get out into the world and see things for yourself. Like, obviously, yes, do your research before you go. But I think people would be so, like, shocked to see how much of the world really isn't that different from what we're living, you know? And I think, like, us going to Chile and, like, having that experience is to just, like, be with people and like talk with them. I feel like besides a few like experience, like I was met with like receptiveness, like especially with my host families, like they wanted to tell me about their lives, like, you know, just like talk about our differences even. I generally don't think I could have picked like a more impactful country to like study abroad in and like go outside the country for the first time ever. And like I'm really just so grateful for like all the travel I was able to do there. And it didn't necessarily feel like a bucket list either when I was traveling. It was like, no, like I want to go explore. Like I really want to go home and tell people about like all of this because like I'm a big believer in, you know, like stuff like this podcast, like just you sharing with one person, one experience you have, like I feel like it has a lot more impact than people think it does, you know? So especially the fellowship I was doing for CIEE, I think it was meant to be, honestly. I would 100% recommend anyone to, like, study abroad or travel to, like, Latin America. Has so much to offer. It really is, like, such a shame that people don't talk about Chile and Latin America the way, like, it deserves to.
Absolutely. Yeah, gotta keep talking about Chile. Keep putting eyes and ears on it. That's what we're trying to do right now. You know, that's how Kara and I met. Was I was sharing my experiences before she was going. She had obviously made her decision. I hope that my sharing of my experiences was helpful with you in that. MJ, I wish I could have done the same if I would have known. That's okay. And yeah, just continuing to just, you know, put it out there for a place that changed all of our lives and a place we love and we want to go back to. So I think that's a really great way to end it off, except I got to ask, because I always ask this, what is the one song that defined your study abroad experience? Because I always want to incorporate in the music. I know I have my playlist from it. I listen to it from time to time when I'm missing Chile. MJ, what is your one song?
This is a very difficult question, I will say. I guess a song that stood out to me during that time was 1977, which is by a Chilean rapper, Anna Juhl. And I had actually heard of this song like in high school, I think, through a different one of my Spanish classes. And so it had been on my radar for a while. But while I was there, I was able to share it with like a few of my other friends in the program, and so it was cool to share that with them. But then in February there was a music festival and she was performing, and it was just like in the street in the city. It was at Santa Lucia and La Moneda, just like the whole street was closed off and there were like 3 stages and she was performing, and that remains one of my favorite nights of my whole time there. But it was very cool to see her perform live, and she's very vocal about activism work, and it was one of the first times where like I was with a lot of Chileans who were also my age, so it was just a beautiful night and a beautiful experience.
I have 2. The one is Enjoy the Silence. I don't know if while you guys were there you heard it a lot, but I swear anywhere I went in Chile, they would always have this song on. And I was like, I think it's like a like English band, but that one, even when I was like in Mexico on my way home, like I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this has to be the song of Latin America, I guess, or one of the top ones. So I'd say that song just because of like how much like I heard it, and now it's just like it's so nostalgic. But also Suerte by Shakira, which is the Whenever, Wherever in Spanish. I did get to see Shakira in person. I literally bought her like tickets for her concert a week into my program. And then I went with like less than 2 weeks left. So it was just like, and it was $30, I will say.
Yeah.
It was right outside of like the National Stadium. It was just insane. And like, it just made me think of when I started out. I was in Spanish too, my freshman year of like high school, and we would do the Waka Waka, like just dance, you know, to get like class started. And then I would do it in Spanish 5, like my senior year. And like, it just made me think of like those teachers I had who like really put me on the track to like be where I am. And I remember being there and just being like, wow, like I'm so grateful for like all these people I have in my life. So, and that song is just such a banger. So, yeah.
Man, that kind of puts some of my favorite songs of that to shame. I don't have as deep stories behind it, but yeah, the impact that that can have. I mean, for both of you, this was a long gamed kind of thing. And that not delayed gratification in that you knew that it was going to come later, but just continuing to follow amazing opportunities, or not even knowing that you're following an opportunity and seeing what it turns into. That is the power that comes with studying abroad and doing these things like that. And I am so thankful that we've had the opportunity to do this. I wish we could talk for so much longer.
Episode 2?
You know,
Going soon?
we may have to do a part 2. We may have to do a part 2. I need to get like an editor or something so we can just do a huge 4-hour all day conversation kind of thing. But I appreciate you guys sharing your story so much with this. And I know that this is going to reach a lot of people. And again, putting more eyes, more ears on Chile, a place that we all love. This has been a really great way to start it. I think we may have to do a part 2. I don't usually do part 2s, but I think we may need to do
We really are.
a part 2 for this. But Kara, MJ, this has been amazing. I appreciate you guys so much. I thank everyone for listening to this. We will see you wherever and whenever in the world next time.